Okay, this video is how to do a simple loom knitted sweater. Took me a little while to prep for this, so hopefully this will come out pretty good for the video. I'm doing it a little different than I normally do because it's a little different process that we have to do. So let's get started. Okay, so what you're going to need to do a loom knitted sweater is obviously the following things. You're going to need your looms, and I use a couple different sizes and I'll explain why. Excuse me. You're going to need your crochet hook. You're going to need one loom knit clip for this particular sweater, and I'll explain why in a minute. And you're going to need your row counter. The simple row counter that all you have to do is pretty much click this button on the top, and you'll get to the next number. Click again. If you want to get back to it, you just turn the knob on the side, and it'll scroll through all the numbers to get you back to 0. So you'll want some sort of row counter. You'll also want, for later on, I have this little case, and in here we got my scissors and my crochet hooks. And obviously you'll need your yarn, which will be whatever colors you want to do. Now I have 2 yellows and I have a green for this particular sweater that I'm doing. However, the one I did before was a blue one, and it had a baby sport weight yarn, so I had to use the strand of that with 2 strands of white red heart yarn. For the one I'm doing now, it's all red heart and it's 3 strands, and excuse me, I'm going to explain in a minute the difference between the blue sweater you saw I did and the one I'll be doing in a minute. When I did the blue one, which you saw, there'll be pictures of, before this video that you'll see of it being on my almost 5-year-old daughter and my 1.5-year-old cousin's daughter. I did that using the green loom. I used one side, so I basically, if you're looking at it, I only used one side to do the back part of it. What you're going to create, this is what this first panel is the back of the sweater. These are going to be 3 flat panels that you're going to create before actually piecing together the sweater and doing the sleeves. What I did is, on the green one to make the blue one, I ended up with 65 rows for the length of that one. In the first 6, I did a little bit like in garter. So, just to give you an idea. This one, I actually used, excuse me, this as my back, and only used, again, one side, because I wanted it a little smaller. I wanted it as if it was for a baby or for a doll, because I know that some people have been asking me about more doll size stuff. So I decided to shrink it down for this tutorial and just for a different size. So again, the blue one sweater, you're going to use the green loom, one side of it, to do the back row. If you're doing the blue sweater picture that you see, you're going to, on the yellow one, do 2 panels for the front, which again are just flat panels. And again, I did the crochet or the garter stitch at the beginning for the first 6 rows. And this is one panel in the front, and this is another panel. Now, flat panels are pretty easy. I've done video tutorials on them, so I'm not worried too much about re-showing you guys that. You're just creating simple flat panels, and you need 3 of them to piece together. Because what you're creating is that this is a flat piece. These are going to be your front, kind of closing it together. So that's what we're going to be working on now, is how do we piece it together. Now I keep the strands that I cut on it because I can hide them later, or if I want to use them to help sew it together, I can. So if you're going to make it this size, the smaller one, then that's 40 rows done on the yellow loom, one side, again just one side of the pegs, and I did the front panels on my pink loom. And I, again, only used one side and did the 40 rows. So if you're going to do the blue sweater, you're going to use the yellow one and the green one, excuse me, to make the flat panels. If you're going to do the green one that you see now, you're using the yellow and the pink. However, for both of them, you're going to be using this pink one to help you create the sleeves and to actually piece together the sweater, which is really cool because that way you can do as much as possible on a loom. So, now you're going to need this obviously for your flat panels, but I don't need it right now. I'll need it when I start doing the sleeves. And I'm going to explain right now that for the blue one, when I do the sleeves on here, I end up doing 50 rows. So it was 65 rows for the flat panels, 50 rows for the sleeves, and doing 3 crochet chains to take the sleeves off, which you'll see how I'm doing it with this one right here. So I decided that I wanted this one, put this over here, to be a little probably shorter sleeved. So again, it's going to be by what you want. I mean, this is what 40, let me hold it back a little bit. This is what 40 rows looks like. So we want to piece it together. And you're going to say, well, how are you going to do that? Well, because what I want is I want to create the sleeves. And I only want to use about half the flat panel on the side for my sleeves. if you're doing the blue one where you're using, where you did your 60 rows, you're going to actually use this whole pink loom to reposition loops back on to make your sleeve. For this one though, I don't need to use the whole loom. If I use the whole loom, if you look, it's going to take up the whole panel. So that's why if you're making a smaller one, you want your little loom clip. This is a 2-pack, I only need one. And I'm probably going to position it and be like, okay, whereabouts do I want it to fall? So I want it to fall about half of this loom, because if I kind of compare it, I think about half. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pegs. So you're just going to want to position it when you're looking on the back. What's going to be about halfway for the sweater. I like bigger sleeves, so it really does depend on how tight you want your sleeves. And again, you're going to snap it in to the nearest hole. So I'm looking at, and snap it in. So I'm going to put it there, and so my sleeve is just going to be this big around. That's what I'm going to work with. The next thing you need to do is you need to line these up a little bit. Because I did the garter stitch at the bottom, this is my front, and this is my back for my particular sweater. It may be different for how you want to do yours. So when you're going to be putting this and one of these, you're going to be doing that right now to make your sleeve on this loom. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make sure that the outer part the outer part that's going to be the outside of the sweater is facing out. Okay, and you can kind of gauge, like, I might be like, well, maybe that's not long enough, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, this is for $1 for a baby. Their arms are more skinny. So what we're going to do is you're going to kind of position this inside and then use your crochet hook and grab one of the outside loops. Okay, so we're going to do that, and I'll be right back to show you. What we want to do is put loops back onto here. And the reason I like doing multicolor is because if you kind of mess up because of the design, you're not going to notice it as much. And then you're just going to grab your loops and put them back on the pegs. And kind of, you're only doing one side with this because you still got to attach one of the other sides. I mean, it's going to be a little tricky because of the space, so you may even be able to do the same thing and use a different one if you want, but it's just the idea that you're putting them back on your project. Okay. It's a little tricky in the beginning, but once you get on there, now make sure you find a way to put loops there and there. So you may have to turn a little bit just to get in there and get another loop to put on the purple one. If you do miss a strand, it's okay as long as you get some of the loop on there so it has something to grip onto. Now, so that's going to be the creation of our armhole. We got to do this other piece on there now too. So this is our outside. This is our, excuse me, this is going to be the back of the sweater, as you can see here. So when we decide to put another piece, which is one of our front panels in, you want to make sure that it's kind of lined up. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to trim a little bit of these strands because I don't need them to be that long. And they're going to be in my way. So I'm going to trim these a little bit. Okay. So what we got to do now is we got to do the other side. So what we're going to do is we still got to put another loop here because you want to make sure the back panel and the front panel are connected. So we're going to kind of figure out if we can grab one more loop that will stretch enough to put on that other peg. Like I said, the beginning part of the sleeve is the trickier part, but you're doing most of it on here. It'll be a breeze after that. Okay, so they're on there. That back side is now on there. So now if you're looking at it like this, you want to put a piece like this, basically. You want to be able to put this, excuse me, so the two sides, the outer parts that you want on the outside of your sweater are pretty much facing out, as you can see. And you're going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of have to push it up through there because, again, it's going to be a tight fit. That's why the blue one was nice because I could use the whole loom and I had a little more space. This time I need it to be a smaller armhole that I want, so I need to use, it's a little tighter fit, but it'll work. I mean, you might, I don't know if this would work on a round loom. I don't know because of the fact that you want the knitted part, like this part, to be tight enough. And if I did it on a blue loom, it may not be tight enough because there's more of a gap between the pegs. So that's why I want it to be tighter. So you're just going to kind of, almost if you have to shove it up in there. Now make sure one of the first loops you grab goes on this peg, so there's 2 pegs, or 2 loops, sorry. All 3 strands, if you've used 3 strands, or as much as you can. Like I said, it's basically to connect the 2 pieces. Okay, and that way on the end, you're connecting those 2 flat panels. And then you're going to go and you're going to find yourself another loop, and just go ahead and put them back on the pegs. And you may have to turn the loom to get it the way you need it to. Like I said, some of these like only have 2 of the strands, but again, it's just to connect it to the best of your ability for lining it up. Okay, and so you might need to pull some of that through. Like I'm pushing it through so I can get to those loops. I mean, you want to do your best to try going in order so that it will line up. Okay, here's our last one. Now we need 1 more loop to put on this purple peg. So we may have to do a little maneuvering, push those down a little bit, and reach down in here and grab another loop. Get on there. Okay, so we got them all like that. Now what you need to do is go ahead, because there's 2 on this one, go ahead and knit that over. Okay, go ahead and knit the one that has 2 over on here. And what that has done is created the spot for your armhole. Now this is the top, and you will worry about adjusting, closing the top off for where the shoulder would be. You'll adjust that when you get it off the loom. But this is to create your armhole. Now what you're going to do is push these down. And this is going to be a little tricky because it is kind of tight. But if you look, you can kind of check and make sure that you're going to be able to stretch these other ones and line them up to close off your seam. And again, you're going to be able to use your pink loom to reposition these on and to do them together. But it's going to be tricky. I'm just showing you one side of doing the sweater. You'll repeat the same process on the other side. So this is what we got. Now we need to work the armhole. This is where, excuse me, a couple things will come in handy. I'm sorry if you actually saw what I'm using for a table. Excuse me. You're going to want your row counter available and getting your yarn available. So I need my 3 strands that I was using for this project. Okay, and sometimes it's a little tricky because I swear they grow. So there's 1 strand that I need. Okay, that's the end of that, and then I need my other strand. So there's another one, and then my last one. And then I'm going to find the end. They're all lined up. And like I said, I'm not going to make these sleeves as long as I did on the other ones. So you're really going to have to figure out how long you want the sleeves to go, and then make sure you jot it down so that you can do it the same on each side. So you got our 3 strands, or 2, or 1. It all depends on the thickness of your yarn. I wanted a pretty thick sweater, so I have 3 strands. And you'll do your slip knot, and you're just going to go around as if it was a circle loom. Place it on one of them, because you can hide these strands later. I would not try to grab all these strands to go around, because it'd be too thick. Worry about hiding these later and with a crochet hook into your project. So then we're going to find the ones that go with that and kind of tuck these other ones, if we can, down in. And now we're going to work on our sweater, our hole for the thing, for the arm. So you're just going to work your way around. And it all depends on what stitch you want to do. I just kept it, for the most part, simple. I want it to just be a simple E-wrap. Okay. Now if you have to, you can do it 1 peg at a time, because sometimes having 2 on there can make it tight. Now what I did is, this is the last one I wrapped, so I'm going to knit it over to help lock it in place. And it may be tight because of, like I said, the strands and the maneuvering we did. Okay. Bottom over the top, basically. And what this is doing is creating the same effect on the outside of your, of your loom. One little strand that doesn't want to go over. There we go. It's going to create the same effect on the outside of the sleeve as this right here. That's why we have to position it like that. Like I said, I'm not going to do as many rows because the idea is just to show you how to do this. And once you get done knitting a row, make sure you click or do whatever you can to keep track of it. because the last thing you want to do is have uneven sleeves. So I'm done with this row. I'm going to reach over, just click that so I know I've done one row. Push them down, and you're going to keep going until you get it the length you want, and then I'll show you how to take it off. Okay, so I went ahead and did some more rows so you can kind of see how it's looking as it's coming through the loom. And there's our sleeve. And you can barely kind of notice where we actually first attached it on both sides. And as you can tell, if I open it up on the inside, there's obviously the hole for the arm. Now it might be a little small, like I said, I'm kind of doing this more like doll size or baby size, so it's been a while since my daughter was a baby, so I'm not sure if I got the right width for this to be smaller. So you may adjust. I mean, that's one thing I've learned is you have to adjust things. So maybe if I did this again or something, I may move this down 1 or 2 more. But as you can see, that's what the sleeve looks like. Now I did 15 rows, and as I said, it's going to depend on the yarn that you're using, excuse me, how many strands you have, and what stitch you're doing. So you might want to even do up like a swatch to give you an idea of how the yarn is that you're going to work with is going to look, so that way you can kind of keep track of it. So like I said, I did 15 rows, and now I want to take it off. I'm only going to show you how to do one side, because then you're just going to repeat the process on the other side. So what I do is I do the crochet chains in between. And now what I like is I like to do a little more, to have a little more flared kind of arm. So I'm going to go to my trusty little crochet hooks. These are a bunch that I got I think at Walmart, and then I got like this case at Walmart. So I want to make sure that I use the hook I've learned to use hooks that are more towards this size. I'm going to try this one because I don't want it to be too huge. This is a size H. We'll see if that works. And what we're going to do, excuse me, I can fix this here a little bit. I'm getting a little disheveled here. Is we're going to do chains in between these. And I'm going to do 3 because I want it to be a little more flared. So what I'm going to do, it's going to be a little tricky to show. I'm going to show you this way here. Let me just get the best thing to do is to get yourself the extra yarn pulled out now so that you're not fighting with it to do it later. And I'm going to pick up the loop, put it on my chain. I'm going to do 3 chains before I pick up the next one for the way I want to do this. This may be different for you. So we got 1 chain, excuse me, 2 chains. Make sure you get all the strands if you're using more than 1 strand. 3 strands. There's 3 chains. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up the next loop. And you're going to take and pull the back one over the top. Excuse me. Why is that? Okay, so there's that chain. Now we're going to do 3 more chains before we do the next one. So we got 1, we got 2, and we got, excuse me, let's get it here. We got 3. Then pick up the next loop. Okay, and then pull the back over the front. So do the chains again. 1, just make sure I'm getting all the strands. 2, 3. I mean, you may decide to do more or less, however you want it to look, really. One, 2, 3. And usually when I'm doing this part, I like to make sure nobody's bothering me because I don't want to lose count. So, because nothing worse than losing count. Okay. Oh, it's a little tight, so let's try that one again. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go pick up the next one. I mean, sometimes you can use your hook to bring this stuff off too. I just don't feel like using it right now. Okay. Make sure you get them all on there. Okay, and you're obviously going to have to turn it because you're working on the other side now. And I hope you can see this okay. I'm trying a different technique, as you can tell with this video, but don't worry, there'll be other videos that you see my little smiling face there. I just was hoping this would be a better angle to be showing this process a little more. Okay. We're almost done. Like I said, it's going to be as long as you want the sleeves to be. You know, it's one thing about, just play around with the idea, because that'll kind of help dictate what you do too. That's what I kind of did with the blue one. It was just trial and error and keeping my row counter next to me so I could see what I did and remember it and try to jot it down or something. And then that way you'll know what you might want to change the next time you do it. Okay, we're almost to the end. Okay. Get into the last loop, and then we have to make sure we join this together, because the fact that it's not joined as a circle on the end until we finagle it here. Okay, so putting that last one on there. Now what I'm going to do before I do all that is I want to kind of push it down through, keep them on there, but try to get rid of it off the loom for the next part here. Okay, just so the loom's not playing, messing with you there. Now you're not joined, because you can tell this is where we started it, this is where we ended it. So do your 3 chains. Right now my yarn is caught on my loom, so I'm going to do my 3 chains. And this is where you're going to want your scissors handy soon. Okay, so there's the 3 chains, and then go over to the first one, and on that first loop, pull it through. Okay, and that will join your sleeve. And then take your scissors and cut yourself a strand, and then bring that all the way through that loop. Okay, and then just kind of move your stuff out of the way the best you can, because nothing worse than having stuff in your way. And look there's our cute little sleeve. Hoping you can see it. And like I said, it may be a little too small of a hole for like a doll. I mean, I'll have to try it on a doll, obviously. But, I mean, all I have to do is the next time I do one, I would just make it bigger. This is just kind of a sample to show you how to do it. So, you need to hide this. So what you can do is turn your project inside out. So, kind of put your sleeve, if you can, the other way. Excuse me, the other way. Because you're going to be working on a different side anyway. Now you're going to be working more on the inside of the sweater in order to join these 2 panels together. So what we're going to do is find where I have this, and we want to kind of hide it a little bit. So you're going to use your crochet hook and kind of go down to one of the other loops and kind of pull. Make sure you get all the strands that you're using on your hook. It's not cooperating today. And pull them through just to kind of hide it on the inside of your project versus the outside. And if you want, you can create like a little slip knot. I'm getting all my strands here. Okay, and then just pull it kind of close. The one didn't go through. Okay. And then again, you can kind of trim the excess that you don't need, and then just kind of hide the others, if you can, in the project, which you can do that more later, just hide it. Now, that's your sleeve. As you can tell, there's our little spot. I mean, like I said, if I had a doll, I don't have a doll next to me. I mean, I may need to make that bigger, but it's still cute. It's, not that hard to change it. Now you have to seam up the sides. Now this is where it's going to be good to kind of match up. If you did the garter stitch like I did, then you're going to want to try to match up that, use that as a guideline. And again, you can use your pink loom or a different loom. Like you could even decide to use the orange if you want, because you're just going to, I'll use the orange this time. I think that won't hurt anything. And what we're going to do is we're going to, excuse me, you're going to do the same process as we kind of did with the sleeve. So what we're going to need to do is put the loops back up here. in the best. Or actually what you can do, you have two ways. You can put it back on the loom and do what we kind of did with the sweater idea and put those together and knit those together and then cast it off, which is what I did with the blue one. Or you could do like a needle and thread or needle and yarn and just do like a mattress stitch hiding it. Excuse me, but I kind of liked doing the loom. If you bring them both up at once as best you can, oh excuse me, then you can do the same idea to try to keep them as matched up as you can. Or like I said, do it a different way, whichever way you want to put them back together. What I'm actually thinking about doing this time is leaving the garter stitch part a little open. So I want to find where that ends. And then that's where I'll start doing mine to kind of create a little slit. And what you can do is kind of come down here in the middle because you don't have that much you need to use. So I would advise probably switching to that. And then I'm looking to see kind of where the garter stitch started or ended. And I'm putting 2 loops. I'm doing one from each side. So I'm reaching the one side, putting a loop on, then going to the next side for the other panel and putting a loop on. And that's all you're going to do, one side and the other. Because you're just basically trying to seam them together. To the best of your ability. And that's all I'm going to do is move down through, adjusting if I need to, because what I can do now is take the sleeve, just kind of shove the sleeve through a little bit so that you kind of get lined up. Okay. Get as close to the armpit part as you can, because that will help you out. Okay, and now see that's what it looks like. Like I said, I decided to leave this open as a little slit, so I'm starting it where I'm hoping that the garter stitch right here ends. Just kind of a little slit on the side, and then just knit them over. And what that's going to do is put these 2 parts together. Or like I said, you can do like a mattress stitch if you are good with the needle and yarn that way. You can do it that way too to close it off. Okay, and now you're going to say, well, how are you going to close this off? Well, what I do is, because we don't necessarily need the 3 strands anymore, so I would take 1 strand of one of the colors you're using, make your little slip knot, and this is going to kind of be your thread. And you're going to put that on that last one you did, you're going to tighten it, and then you're going to knit this, so do the same thing, 1 row across. And again, you can just use the 1 strand that keeps going. You just want to be able to kind of put it all together. So I'm just using 1. Boy, this is not cooperating. 1 strand. So what I might do, since it wants to keep falling, is I'm just going to knit over that 1 strand. This is helping to lock it into place. Okay, and so I'm going to okay, I left off. We're getting close to the end. Okay, the armpit's right there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, excuse me. Okay, so that is helping to lock that closed. Okay, now that's going to be a lot to seam. Now, what we can do just to make sure it's locked is go back one more time over. It's a little easier this time. Excuse me. And then just knit over again. Okay, push them down. Now you're going to take this off the same way we kind of did with the sweater. We're going to do that crochet thing. So I'm going to turn it because I'm right-handed. And I don't need this size because it's not as big anymore. So I can go with a smaller size hook this time. Okay, and what I'm going to do is the same as I did before with the crochet with the chains in between. Okay, you might just have to do 1. You don't need to do really a lot with this one. I mean, I'm only doing like 1 in between before I take it off. I'm not wearing as much. Let's see if you can see that. I'm just doing 1 in between each of the pegs for this. because pretty much if you've watched my other videos, then you kind of know how to do the flat panels, how to put them cast on and cast off for a flat panel. That's why I didn't show it for this one. So this is just showing you like piecing those flat panels together to make your sweater. Okay, I'm getting close to the armpit one. And you can give it a little tug too, because you want it to be a little tighter. Okay, what didn't go? Okay, let's try that again. There we go, and the last one comes off. Goes over. Give that a little tug. You can cut some of your excess string so you can work with it better. And then just bring it through. That last one. Now it's locked in place. Get rid of your loom again. As you see, that's going to be our seam, so we're just going to want to put a little slip knot in it to keep it tight. Well, I'm supposed to go down closer, but, well, what I'll do is I'll actually do it this way. I'll go to one of the loops beside it, grab that strand, pull it through, but not all the way. Create yourself a little loop, if you can see that, then loop it again and pull it all the way through. And that will kind of help to tie it off. And what that creates is a little looser of a side seam. Now I did mess up a little bit in there. There was some strands I didn't catch. But it'll kind of put it on there tentatively. And if it is something that isn't as tight as you want, it's easy to go back through and then just kind of reinforce it with another going around, mattress stitching it with the sweater. So if we turn this inside out the right way, you'll see that we've got our sleeve done and we've got our seam. And like I said, I'll show you. I missed the loop right there of putting it on, so I would have to change. I would have to sew it, but it kind of reinforces it and gives it that little extra for around the person's waist. So like I said, you're going to do that same process with your other flat panel on the other side. Like I said, I did 15 rows because I wanted a short one. It was 40 rows for this part. That includes the 6 rows at the beginning of garter, and it was 15 for that with 3 crochet chains in between. But again, it's going to be adjusted to the person you're making it for. I mean, if you're making it for a bigger baby or smaller baby or whatever, there's adjustment. If you're using different yarn, there's an adjustment to make. So that's why doing a swatch of the yarn you want to use will give you an idea. But as you can see, and then we'll do this one, and what you will do is you'll add a little loop that you can put a button on, and that way there'll be a button, and you can try adding them all down through if you wanted. So that's just how to do the little sweater. Like I said, just reinforce things if you need to. And when you want to do up here, all you can do is you're going to turn it inside out, because you're going to want the neck closed a little bit. Turn it back inside out. Look at that, and that's why if you keep some of the extra strands, then just fold those together and just kind of stitch those like an inch or so in on each side, and there will be your sweater. So I hope this tutorial was a little better in the showing, and I've got more in the works.